Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and we are going to pick up the playthrough of this War of Mine, the board game, in day number 2 in the morning. If you haven't checked out my rules overview video in day number 1, you'll want to go check that out, or my solo setup video that'll help you understand how we got to where we currently are. I'll put a link in the top right hand corner to the showcase in general, and then you can flip through the videos as you see fit. If you're ready to go with day number 2, let's kick things off. Just before we head into day number 2, though, we have to resolve the narrative action selection that I left open-ended for you guys to decide in the voting and the comments in the last video. And I can tell you right now, between those two spots to make your voice heard, things were seriously close, to the point where I couldn't even determine which of the two was more popular. In terms of the voting, it appeared that Kick the Door Down was actually the most popular, but then in the comments, Vigilant Watch was the most popular. So overall, totaling them up, they were pretty much dead even. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to roll a die. Now, I'm kind of leaning towards Vigilant Watch, but we're going to go ahead and roll a die anyway and let fate decide for us. Now, I'm not going to do that in every other case going forward, because we'll have a lot more, or at least a better understanding of what the game state currently is and know exactly which one we should go after. But right now, being that we're only through day number 1, we haven't had too many nasty things happen yet. However, I do really like the idea of being able to negate nasty night raids, which are pretty bad. So let's go ahead and roll. If it's a 1 to 5, we're going to take the Vigilant Watch, and if it's a 6 to 10, we're going to take Kick the Door Down. Now, normally I wouldn't tell you guys to vote and voice your opinion and then end up rolling a die for this, so I do apologize for that, but it really was that close. I couldn't even determine which of the two to go for. So here we go. Let's roll it off and see what happens. It's a 4, so fate would have us that Vigilant Watch is going to be the one that we actually keep. And you know what? That was the one I was kind of leaning towards, because with Kick the Door Down, what we could do is build ourselves a workshop, build ourselves an item, or fitting, I should say, that will allow us to build or create lockpicks to get through closed doors. So as much as that is a handy thing, I think being able to mitigate a really nasty night raid is probably more important. So we're beginning a brand new day here, day number 2. We need to go and resolve an event card, so let's find out what we have in store for us today. So we just got the event airdrop, and this is really, really unfortunate, because not only do we not get to take advantage of anything good on this card, things get really bad for us in terms of the cold. And it's ironic because Bruno was left on guard overnight during day number 1, and unfortunately he goofed up and he started a fire inside the house, which consumed the only thing that can generate heat for us, which is a simple heater. So by doing so, now we have an event coming into day number 2 that has us adding 3 cold tokens into the cold space, which certainly means things got a lot colder going into day number 2, which is really unfortunate. And then even more so, the airdrop is going to pass us by because we did have individuals go to scavenge, so we don't benefit from the fact that someone just happens to fly by dropping supplies that we just find. And they were some good ones. Canned food is huge, cigarettes are great for Bruno, and the meds are always good. We won't be able to take advantage of any of it, so the only thing we're gaining is 3 cold tokens. Bruno is probably feeling pretty bad about what happened, but there's no time to sulk about it now. We're going to have to figure out a way to deal with these. So thanks to Bruno burning down the simple heater last time, I really think that might be something to go after here. Now, I've thought about going ahead and boarding up holes, but we're going to have to build something in order to even board up holes in the first place, and that's just going to take too much time. We got to resolve some of the cold tokens that are currently there in order to lighten what could potentially happen in the fate deck later on, and then maybe when we have an event that comes out and only adds like a single cold token, we can focus on trying to build towards boarding up the house. We are managing a lot of things at the same time, which is quite fun. So the first thing we're going to do is actually have Emilia. She's going to go all the way up to the place of fitting location up here. She'll be taking a place of fitting action. Of course, I'm going to be trying to rebuild the simple heater again, and I do have the components to do so, and you have to in order to put that individual there. Next up, in order to gain more resources, because once we get the simple heater, I do have the availability on the second set of actions, because currently right now, based across my entire characters, I have 2 actions each. So I'm hoping in the first round of actions I can build the heater and maybe have both of these characters poke about, because you can have as many characters as you want down here. It says any number of characters at the same time. We're going to roll and try to gather as much wood as we can, plus the wood we already have, and then plus the book we have, and maybe we'd be able to burn enough wood to get rid of the cold for at least now, which would help us later on. It's not exactly what I wanted to do today, but based on the fact we had a fire, we don't have too much choice. So that's going to resolve the placement of everybody. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to resolve poke about first. The thing to remember is you can't use resources from the current action you're doing towards the fitting you'd like to make. So whatever I gather from poke about right now, I'm going to put in this storage space, but it's going to put it off to the side because I can't actually use it at the exact same time I'm trying to build a fitting. You'll see what I mean in a second. So let's see how this die roll goes for me. First off here, we're going to poke about and we're going to do it with Bruno. He really needs to help out, seeing as he caused most of this mess. He got himself a 6, which isn't terrible, so that's going to be 2 wood. I could take any kind of assortment of wood and components, but I have 8 components, which is more than enough for what I want to build or do currently. I'm more focused on the wood in order to burn away these cold tokens when I get the chance. So he is going to gather 2 wood, which again I'll put in storage, but I'm going to put it off to the side because I can't access it during this set of actions. He's going to go back to the guard position, and we're going to have Boris roll off and hope for something even better. Okay, a 5, so not any better, but 2 more wood. So that's pretty good, because that's enough wood once we have the simple heater in place right there between those 2 sets of 2 wood. On the second round of actions, we can help to burn away 2 cold tokens with that 4 wood, so not terrible. So the simple heater is going to go right back where it was originally, and as I mentioned earlier, I already made sure that I had the components. Now in the future, I might start putting the card down and putting the components on top of it, just to remind myself, because I don't want to actually forget. But here's 5, because I don't want to mix and match anything I gain in the current action round. So 5 components gone, and we're going to take 3 wood from the 4 wood we already had prior to all the wonderful basement rummaging we just did, and we've built our simple heater again. So thanks to Bruno, all those resources we gained last time when we went through the heap, and we were like, yes, this is a huge win. We got back everything we needed, and we really just got back everything we needed to rebuild the heater. So we'll go ahead now and put the simple heater into play. Nice. So we'll be able to try and make a fire on this second round of actions. She is done, so everybody's back to the guard position, and that is action round number 1. All right, so going into the second round of actions, you can see the 4 wood are now part of my allotment here, so I can use these if I want to build something, and I really do. I want to build a bed. We don't want to make, we want to make sure, I should say, that our characters are actually not going too high up in fatigue, and we can manage that. So we're definitely going to have Emilia. She's been doing pretty good with the building of things. She's going to go up and place a new fitting. We're going to go ahead and build a bed. I'm just going to go place it right now so that, again, we don't, confuse anything in terms of components here. I do have the 3 because, again, you need to have what you need in order to make it. And you might be wondering, wait a minute, didn't you want to use the wood for the fire in the simple heater? Well, I was thinking about it. The thing is that I want to balance, getting some of the critical things inside of our house that we need for later rounds to help us out, because no one's going to be able to rest today. We're probably going to be in a situation where someone's going to be guarding, and we're probably going to send both characters out to the grocery store. It sounds like a nice trip, to be able to gain more components and things to bring back, and food and everything else. So I don't see anyone being able to rest, which means our fatigue is going to go up. And if we're not ready to have a bed in place for the next day to start resting away all that fatigue, we're going to be in a bit of trouble pretty fast. So I'd love to get rid of all 3 cold tokens, but I'm thinking with the book and the wood I have left over in my storage right now, I can get rid of at least one of them, which I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to place one of my individuals in a simple heater space, and that individual is going to end up using a book and a wood on his activation in order to burn away 1 cold token. So it'll drop us to 2, which is fairly low, and we should be safe. Famous last words. And then the third individual, I'm tempted to potentially poke about. I could also take a shovel and deal with some rubble. That wouldn't be a bad idea. So what I'm going to do is really a question of, well, I guess it's a question between a heap and a furniture, which we have over here, which in terms of the 2 options I could go after. Furniture I know is going to provide me wood and things like that, so that's always good. Plus, typically we'll have some components in, but heap can be really useful too. So, tough call. I'm going to go ahead and do the rubble right beside the simple heater here. So I'll take a shovel, and Bruno will go over there and start digging. Again, we're just going to be able to flip the cards, so it's not that exciting, but we're working towards something. So this action's pretty straightforward for Emilia. She's going to come back to the guard position. She's spending the 4 wood, which we lose right now, and we lose the 3 components. We've also just built a bed, which is awesome. So we'll flip this over. This is going to give us the ability to take an action to take a nap. We can lower fatigue of the character placed here by 2. That's huge. And it also says below, sleeping in a bed for the whole night removes all fatigue from a character. And again, it's only 1 character that can actually sleep there. So a nice warm bed inside of this house, which will allow our individuals to exchange every action round, potentially sleeping in that bed, knocking down their fatigue. Next, let's resolve Boris's second action here at the simple heater. He's going to take an action to make a fire. For each 2 wood or 2 books or 1 wood and a book, discard 1 cold token. So we're losing a book and losing a wood here in order to burn that away to knock 1 cold token off. Now, it's really hard sometimes getting rid of books because books are really good when you have a chair. If you have a chair and a book, you roll, and your roll actually increases in terms of your chances to lower misery, which can be huge. So I don't like necessarily burning books when I don't have to, but in this case, 3 is fairly high, and there is a risk there that we could get sick from it being so cold. So I'd like to knock it down to 2 to keep things manageable. So this cold token is going to drop by 1. Maybe in the future, if we get another book, we'll hold on to it for a little longer. That's going to resolve Boris's action, so he's out of here. And the other thing to note is it says for each 2 wood, 2 books, 1 wood or a book. So you can potentially clear out all cold in a single action if you have all the resources in order to do that. And we're all very familiar with how rubble works. We're going to go ahead and just dig through this rubble, which is simply going to have the card flip over as we work our way towards, hopefully, getting past it into the furniture later on. So we move into dusk, and we can choose for our individuals to now drink water if they so choose, and I'm definitely going to go ahead and do that. So 3 water, 1 for each individual. That's good. Next up, we're going to eat some food, and I have some choices to make here. I can decide to use canned food and 2 vegetables across all 3 of my characters. I really have to decide who's going to eat what. The biggest thing is I may not want anyone at this point to actually eat the canned food, because the canned food can remove 2 from hunger. So at this point, it'd be a really inefficient use of it. I might want to actually have someone's hunger increase. Now remember, holding on to food inside your storage is not like a safe haven, because those night raid cards that can come out, of course we have Vigilant Watch, which will help us. Things that may get stolen from us, we can reduce that, but typically night raids sometimes can have people come right in and just start stealing straight up green tokens from you, or other types of colors, which really cause problems for you if you're trying to save things. So there's this delicate balance of storing up things in the storage area for future use, and also realizing that it can literally disappear on you overnight, no joke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose to have Emilia actually take the extra hunger hit, and that's because she's already got a bit of misery. So because of that, I'll be having to work doubly as hard to get her back on her feet later on. So I'm going to choose to hold on to my canned food and risk it that I can use it later on to bring her hunger all the way back from 2 all the way up. So because she's not eating, her hunger will increase by 1. Again, it doesn't eliminate any additional actions for her, so that's good. And hopefully, like I said, later on, we can knock that away. I'm going to use vegetables for Boris and a vegetable for Bruno, simply doing nothing to their hunger but keeping it at the current level, so that's safe. So now we move into the evening phase, and I need to determine what my character is going to do during that evening phase. And you know what? Bruno has voiced his opinion that he really wants to mix it up to the group and stick around and do a better job overnight of covering the house. And with Vigilant Watch, he's going to try his best to do that. So we are going to leave Bruno here in the guard position. So because he's going to stay here overnight, his fatigue is actually going to go from a 1 to a 2, which, as you can see, is going to drop down the amount of actions he can do. This is why being tired is not good, because your actions are going down the tubes quickly. And I have to think about this, because if I have everyone out doing things overnight, we're going to go into the next round, or next day I should say, and we're going to only have 1 action across all my characters, which could be very deadly in terms of not being very productive. So what we might want to do is I have to juggle the thought of knowing full well I'd like to have Boris head out and scavenge. I'd like to have him go to the supermarket, so that's going to make him tired as well. So he's going to flip from a 1 to a 2, also losing an action in the future. So the question is, Emilia, do I have her go to sleep so that she just kind of is ready and doesn't lose any more actions? I think I want to, because in the next round, I'll be able to get one of my 2 characters into a bed to kind of bring them back from their sleepy state, which is good. it's tough. The downside is if I don't get Emilia out the door right now to help with Boris, then he may not be able to bring back as much as he potentially could. But you know what? When our fatigue is getting up that high, I think it's worth it to actually go ahead and have her rest. So I'm going to go ahead and put her in the bed space. This is a real tough call because I have gone ahead and risked it in the future and just put them all out there to go to a location and grab as much as possible. But I think being that we're kind of one step behind having everyone rested up for 2 actions at the bare minimum next day, we should probably work towards keeping at least one character at that 2 action level. So with Emilia in the bed, I'm going to go ahead and take the fatigue level of 1, and it's going to disappear because it reduces it by 2 when she's sleeping in a bed. So that's great news, and all I have to deal with in the future is her hunger and misery, and then she's going to be back on her feet fully. So now we're going to begin the scavenging phase. So I have to choose a location for Boris to go to, and although I really want to go to one of these 2 because I get more cards for exploring, I'm going to send him to the supermarket because at this point now we want to make sure we always have enough food going into the next day, and only having 1 canned food is really not enough. And I don't want my characters to get too hungry, seeing as they actually sit at hunger 1, and all it would take is for them to miss out on food for 1 day, and boom, we've lost our 3rd action. So I'm going to bring back as much food as I can. Plus, there's a lot of other great things there. There's cigarettes there, which is good for Bruno. There's coffee there, which is great for Emilia to keep her misery from triggering. So there's a number of reasons to be there. One other thing to note is up top right, we've got basement entrance, bars, and closed doors. So those are all things that we can potentially find in the exploration deck. One thing I did incorrectly the last time, or I should say part number 1, was when we ran into one of those particular spots, if it doesn't exist in the current location, so if I pull something, for example, if I was to pull a rubble card from the exploration deck for the supermarket, there is no rubble up here in the top right hand corner. Instead of actually losing the card and it going in the discard, you do lose the card, but you gain back a card from the exploration deck because you don't essentially thematically lose time for finding something that doesn't exist at a certain location. You just get to grab another card and continue onwards and hopefully find something more useful. And that's really nice. I messed that up the first time through, so I actually hurt myself by 1 card, which would have been nice to have, but we got it all figured out, and we're going to move forward, hopefully using that to our advantage in the future. So let's set up for our exploration with 10 cards at the supermarket. And as you know, I still have this rubble die here. At the end of scavenging, I can choose to roll this, and we can kind of go and see what happens. I think I'm going to do that for the first time on this second day. We'll see what happens. But first, we're going to go to the exploration deck. I'm going to pull 10 cards off the top. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that is going to be our unknown deck, which is going to sit down here, and we're going to rip through these and hope for the best. Hope we can bring back some good stuff. All right, so first card off the top of the deck, and we've got Reality Impact. Oh, wonderful. So right off the bat, we've already got something unexpected. That is not what we necessarily want. So it says draw a card from the colors deck to determine the color of the script. So we'll go ahead and do that quickly, and then draw a card from the Exploration deck, which is this one right up here, and only care about the number that relates to the color we've picked. And when I say color we picked, I mean color we're given. In this case, we got the color blue. So we'll go ahead and we'll end up shuffling this back into the colors deck. But first, we're going to go to this exploration deck, flip it over, and check out the blue symbol at the bottom. It is 6. Wow, that's really early on in the scripts book. So I've gone ahead and shuffled the exploration card that we used to find script number 6 back into the exploration deck up here, just off camera, and this is the one that came from this deck right here. So we're resolving this right now. We're on script number 6. Let's find out what happened. Dull thuds fill the air. 5 jerks were kicking a passed out figure on the ground. Well, that's not cool. We've got 3 different options here. We can say, hey, psst, an armed patrol is coming. We've just got away from them and you should do the same. We would go see a script if we choose that one. Option number 2 is let's wait until they're finished. In other words, let them beat this individual up, which is pretty awful. Maybe we'll be able to help him somehow after they're gone. Wow, so we're going to watch him get beat up and then we're going to try to help him afterwards like we weren't there in the first place. That's pretty harsh. We would return 1 exploration card and see 548 if we decide to do that. So basically we're burning time. So one of these cards would be returned. Or it's not our concern, back to the game. Now, here's the thing that's brutal, and this is where the moral compass thing comes in. Your gut tells you that you want to help this person, and in almost every circumstance you would. But inside of this game, knowing full well that if you have a group of 5 thugs happening to kick and beat an individual down, and you know you've gone scavenging with 0 weapons whatsoever, and I haven't the intent to trade, I'm actually looking to, pick up as much stuff as possible and get the heck out of there, this is not necessarily the time to be helping somebody, and that's pretty brutal. And these are the types of things you'll run into where your gut will tell you you need to help this person, but you also have to read the script really well, because sometimes you'll glaze over the fact that it said there's 5 jerks. And of course, if I go in there saying, hey, I'm here and there's a patrol coming, you should get out of here, they might think something along the lines of, hey, that's great. Well, the patrol's not here right now, but you're here. Let's put you into the dirt. And I don't want that to happen. So because of that, I'm going to do the horrible thing and just say it's not our concern and disappear. Now, I could have waited until after they beat him up. That's even crueler. But it doesn't even say in the script when I've read that they won't target me next anyway for just waiting around. So it could also be bad just sticking it out. So I'm just going to get the heck out of there because it's not my intent to help at this point, and I really don't have the means to. It's really, really sad. Okay, so let's continue through this exploration deck here and see what's next. Okay, we got ourselves a closed door, and this is something that actually does exist at the supermarket. The problem is you need a lockpick, which I don't have. So at the very top here says map card, check the current location for a closed door. There is. If there is a closed door, you may resolve this card immediately or place it on the exploration slot and reserve it later instead of drawing a new exploration card. So because there is a closed door at this location, I am going to go ahead and do what it says at the bottom here and resolve it later instead of drawing a new exploration card. So basically we know there's a closed door at the location. We don't have a lockpick for it, but we could interact with it if we happen to run into a lockpick later on. So that's pretty useful. So let's go ahead to the next card in the deck and see what happens. Search the furniture. Now, one thing I want to mention about this card here is if there hadn't have been a closed door, that was the thing that I goofed up on in day number 1, where we had one of these things show up that wasn't at the location at all. This one actually is at the location, and when it's not at the location, this card goes in the discard, and you actually pull back 1 card from the actual exploration deck over here in order to not lose any time. So, but if there literally is that certain thing in our supermarket, which there is, then the only thing I can do is place it in this active area here and potentially interact with it later on. Next card we got here is the search the furniture. So you may ignore this card, so we can simply just jump right past it. I want to search the furniture. This could help us build things later. Or we can return 2 exploration cards of time back to the deck. Or we can raise the noise by 1 and roll. I'm going to raise the noise by 1 and roll. I like doing that. I like risking that every single time when it's low, especially at 1. But then at a certain point, it gets a little unruly. All right, let's roll it off and see what happens. We're at a noise level of 2, and I've moved that up on the chart, and we got ourselves a 5, so we are safe. That is good. Whew, okay, and because of that, we now can draw and resolve 1 card from the findings deck and focus on the furniture chart. So what did we find? We found ourselves a weapon part. Hey, we got some raw food in there. That's huge. And we get to roll a 10-sided die to see what else we get from the supermarket. Let's roll. We got ourselves, is that a 9? Wow, that's a high roll. We got a cigarette. That's perfect. We needed that for Boris. That is great. So we're going to go ahead and add some things to our findings pile. Not bad, not bad. Now, the only downside to all this stuff is that these things actually have some weight associated with them, so we're already at 2 weight with those. We do know we have 2 weapon parts back at our house, so we may not need to bring that one back if we need to decide on weight, but the cigarette's free to bring back. All right, so far so good. Let's continue and see what else happens. Someone is here. Oh no, the noise is going up by 3. That's aggressive. So 1, 2, 3, we're up to 5 now. Doesn't say to make a roll, but that is certainly pushing the chances that we are going to run into somebody. So that's not good at all. Yikes. Bars. Okay, so here we go. Great example. Oh, there actually is bars at this location, surprisingly. So if there are bars, as I mentioned before, you may resolve the card immediately, which we're not going to do because we can't saw through. We don't have a saw blade with us. We didn't bring it. I also chose not to bring the shovel because there's no rubble at this location. That's another reason why I didn't bring anything with me. And I wasn't planning on trading, even though I have things like sugar and other things I could trade. I didn't have a lot of weight, so I wanted to keep myself light. It says you may resolve the card immediately or place it on the exploration slot and resolve it later instead of drawing a new exploration card. So don't have tons of options there. I either resolve it or I put it in this line. So I've got a bunch of things that could potentially, so you can see by actually bringing lockpicks and saws, you can get into other areas as long as they're actually on the location, which the supermarket apparently has bars, which, Yikes. Don't know if I want to shop there. You may ignore this card or poke about. Ah, I like this. So I can either return an exploration card or roll for noise. That's easy. This is a straight up return. I'm not rolling for noise at 5. Are you crazy? So that's going back, and we're going to go ahead. Now it says choose one finding from the special findings chart for this location. So that's great. It's literally just a pick from the chart. Now, hopefully you guys can see that chart from this distance, but we've got sugar here, we've got mechanical parts, we've got weapon parts, and it's actually 2 mechanical parts if you pick that one. Weapon part, alcohol, coffee, cigarette, and vegetable. You know what? I'm going for coffee. As much as I want the food, oh, that's tough. The coffee's good because what if Emilia doesn't have coffee? Her misery's already at 1, and once you get up to 2, it gets scary because there are things in the game that can tick you up by 2 that can trigger. So I'm going to go after coffee, even though that's not normally what I'd pick here. I'd probably pick food, but I want to be sure I can control Emilia's misery, so that'll make her happy by bringing back some coffee. Plus, it's free and has no weight. Okay, moving along to the next card. Let's see what we get. Open space. Is there an open space here? There is not. So this one says check the current location for open space. If there is no open space, discard this card and draw a new card from the exploration deck. And otherwise we'd have to resolve this immediately. So I can go ahead and put that there. We're going to draw the top card off the deck. Basement entrance. Wow, we are finding everything here. So this one here says, again, there is a basement entrance actually at the supermarket, and it says if there is, you may resolve this card immediately or place it in the exploration slot as they've done, and resolve it later instead of drawing a new exploration card. So again, I could choose to raise the noise by 3 and roll. That would be deadly. I'm at 5. It would push me to 8. The chances of me rolling and actually finding someone would be super high. So I'm just going to leave that there. Let's just leave that there. I don't want to interact with that one right now. Let's continue onwards here. All right, so this one says, you may ignore this card or return 2 exploration cards to place it on the exploration slot and use it anytime during the scavenging phase. After rolling for noise, you may discard this card to ignore an encounter. Oh, that could be so good. So what I can do is, the downside is I don't think I have enough cards. I don't. Oh, that would have been handy to get maybe a card or 2 back so I could have done something with one of these. I could have totally done something with this one. The order of things didn't pan out for me there, but the basement entrance would have been an option to risk it, to trigger noise, to then hide so that no one saw me. Too bad, not going to happen. So I'm going to have to ignore this. There's nothing I can do about it because I can't return it. So let's just hope that the last card gives me something I can use. Nope, it's a climb up. It needs a whole bunch of cards in order to continue forward. So that is the end of our scavenging. And you know what? Because we didn't do so well, this is going to be the moment the rubble die makes its appearance. Now, the rubble die certainly doesn't get you out of every jam, and there's definitely sides of this die that can be extremely bad, so it's a risk. And it does state that you can go ahead and choose to roll this. It's not mandatory at the end of scavenging before you kind of move into your findings. So we're going to go ahead now and roll this die off and see what happens. So you can see right there, rubble die rule represents a decision to sacrifice some time while returning from scavenging. We risk more than usual, but instead we can find something more or trigger special events, either good or bad. And it mentions right down here, during the scavenging phase, as I mentioned, after the exploration is finished, which is right now, but before the choose a finding stage begins, you may roll the rubble die, check the result, check the other side of the chart. You can only make 1 roll with the rubble die per 1 scavenging phase. All right, you guys ready for this? Let's see what happens with the rubble die. What do we land? A C. That is a very, very large C. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Adrenaline. Choose 1 character present and lower their fatigue by 1. That is perfect. That is the best thing I could have gotten. That is really going to help me out next turn. That literally just saved a full action for one of my characters. And then based on how I did this, I think now everyone's going to get 2 actions. Okay, that was complete fluke. So what side? The other thing that's really crazy when you look at it, you can see E was pretty broad, right? So this is why the rubble die is so wild, because there's a 4 to a 22% chance of rolling different sides on this die, which is pretty crazy. The odds are all over the place. But there are certain things about this that are really bad. Like there is, for instance, you land an I, it's a headshot. Choose 1 character present and remove them from the game. So there is a serious risk to rolling this die. It's not just all, hey, this is going to be a great benefit to do every time. You can straight up lose a character in a heartbeat. And of course, when that happens, the misery is going to rise up back home, and you're going to be dealing with having to go outside in sniper fire, hoping that visitors are going to come to your door and want to join you. you. There's a lot of bad things that can happen through this card as well, but there's some good things too. Happened that it worked out. The one thing I got, which was the C, was perfect for exactly what I needed going into the next day. So seeing as Boris was the one that actually risked his neck to go out there, let's say hypothetically he found himself an energy drink somewhere, although I highly doubt you'll be finding any energy drinks in this type of situation, but was able to reduce his fatigue down to 1. So now we need to choose our findings, and you'll notice that I've got some water in there and a piece of wood. I've added those in because we have Boris who can hold up to 6 weight. Each resource is going to add a weight. If I choose to add them in, which I definitely want to, I want water for the next day, and I want to be able to ensure that I avoid any die rolling that will bring up my misery or hunger level. I've got a piece of wood in here, and I'm also bringing back a couple other items. So in total right here is my 6 in terms of weight, and I've got coffee and cigarette, which is perfect for Bruno and Emilia. And now we find out about the night raid as we move into the night. Now, first off, we get to choose any weapons for our guards. I don't currently have anything that I can use, so I'm going into this barefisted, but we do have Vigilant Watch if we need it. Let's see what our night raid card is going to give us. Starving people. This game. Okay, so right here we've got a damage. First off, it's going to occur any 4 tokens and resources starting with green ones. So literally, that would be my canned food, my no, not my herb, sorry, that's yellow, but my sugar. So those 2 would go first, and then after that, I can go ahead and actually pick 2 others that they would steal away. So they take my food, take my sugar, and then start stealing some other tokens that I choose, and then I'm also going to get hit for a wound. So what I could do to avoid this from happening is I could use Vigilant Watch, which I got earlier. This could work out pretty good. So this one says, play during the night phase, lower the damage or wounds from a single night raid card by 4 tokens, resources, or wounds. So I can kind of divvy this up how I want. Still requires at least 1 character to be on guard duty. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to work perfectly. So I was supposed to take 4 tokens away starting with green. So as I mentioned, I have sugar and I have canned food, and there's no order of this. It's not talking about taking the highest rated ones. It just simply says starting with green. I'm going to let them take my sugar. I'm going to use the Vigilant Watch to block 3 of the other tokens from being stolen. So that's including my canned food from being stolen, thank goodness. And so really all they're getting from me is some sugar. I hope that keeps them going, maybe keeps them a little bit more crazy when they run to the next house. And then right here, we're going to go down to the wounds, and actually that will cover the wounds as well because I'm blocking with 4. So 3 of it is going to be covering 3 of the tokens. The additional 1 is going to cover the wounds. We don't take any wounds, and we're done. So thanks to Bruno promising he was going to hold down the fort, minus letting some sugar slip out the door and giving it to some hungry people, which is a kind gesture, but certainly not as kind as giving canned food away and all kinds of other good things. This card has been fully resolved, so this will also be removed from the game now, and Starving People, this one here, gets shuffled back into this Night Raid deck. At the end of the Night Raid, we now do a crime wave where we pick 2 cards coming from the Residence deck, the Night Raid deck, or 1 of each, and add them into the respective decks on the board. I'm going to choose to bring the last 2 Residents, and I'm going to go ahead and shuffle them into the Residence deck. I'm going to try to keep the Night Raid's deck from getting too nasty, so I will be shuffling this off camera. So Boris is going to return to the house along with all the findings that he received. He got himself a cigarette, which is nice. Got ourselves a coffee. This sugar actually shouldn't be here. I don't know why I put this back in storage. This was one of the ones we gave the starving people, so that is going to disappear. Forgot to remove that. Weapon part, another weapon part. We got 3 of these. That's quite a bit. We got a raw food that's going to be helpful. And 3 water. That's also going to be helpful coming up here soon. And a single piece of wood. So taking a look at our characters, we can now assign any meds or bandages for illness and wounds. We don't have any, so we're good there. Quite happy to not be doing that. And we now draw a fate card. The fate card is going to have us raise wounds of all wounded unbandaged characters by 1, so that won't happen as we have no wounds on any characters. We can lower illness by all characters, or of all characters who took meds by 2. Again, I didn't have illness, I didn't put meds on anybody, so we're good there. We're going to discard the med tokens from all characters. We don't have any currently on them, so skip past that. If cold tokens minus board ups equal 5 or more, and that's not true, because currently we have 0 board ups, we have 2 cold tokens, so it's only a 2, which is not 5 or more, we would then raise the illness. So thankfully we've kept that to a low minimum, so we could have actually kept it to 3 and been safe this time, but we wouldn't have known that. So that's good news, at least. Next, we're going to exchange the nearest small location. As you can see here, it doesn't matter what you look at in terms of what's nearest. We don't have a small location. We have a medium, a large, and a medium. So that one will also be skipped past. At this point, we'd also resolve any weight tokens and then discard them. We currently don't have any, but I'm hoping in the future to have some. Maybe we can set up some animal traps. And now we're going to go ahead and resolve Spirit A. Check out this. So the habit is going to trigger here for Bruno for his cigarette habit, and thank goodness we have a cigarette for him. Up here it says if Boris is fatigued, level 2 or 3, thank goodness I dropped his fatigue down to 1. Otherwise, his misery would have gone up. So not only did I pick that just without actually checking the spirit, that's something I need to do. That was very fluky because I didn't check that. And if I had seen that, I would have picked him anyway. I already did pick him, but it was just complete and utter fluke. I did it because he was the one out there working hard, rolled the rubble die, and got the ability to drop his fatigue down. But man, did that work out. The next one here, spirit, is a habit. Discard 1 coffee from the storage or raise her misery by 1. That would have been bad. Thankfully, we were smart and brought back coffee for her. Next, we go to the narrative action deck, draw 2 cards. We got Handyman and Headshot. So the top one here says played anytime, automatically exchange a broken item for its fully functional one. So something like a broken guitar, for instance, we could fix. That's pretty cool. Headshot, this one here says play during any combat or during your backstab. If you are using a firearm, discard 1 ammo to automatically kill an enemy. So not only do I need a gun, but I need ammo. 2 things I don't have. Play during the night raid phase. If a character on guard duty has a firearm, discard 1 ammo to automatically ignore their night raid card. Just one of them. Still, that's really, really good. But you know what? For right now, I don't know if I have plans to really build a weapon, but this could change that. So I've made my choice. I'm going to stick with the Handyman, so I'm automatically able to exchange a broken item for its fully functional equivalent, which could be really nice, especially if I find a broken gun, which would ironically get us closer to something and being able to use this in the future. But for now, because I didn't choose it, it's going back in the narrative actions deck. Morning has arrived on day number 3. It's time to pull another event. For an event, we got relatively peaceful, which actually sounds quite nice, except for the fact you'll notice in the top left-hand corner it says to add 4 cold tokens to the cold space, which is going to increase our total count to 6. Things just got really cold really quick. Next on the card, it states to place this card on top of the Night Raids deck, which I will do, and it says if there is at least 1 board-up token in the shelter, we can skip the Night Raid phase. So Bruno here is very, very tired going into the day actions. I'm definitely going to have him make use of the bed. The bonus of this, and by using a bed, I can actually lower my fatigue here by 2, which is pretty awesome. Next, I'm going to have Emilia and Boris go down to the pokeabout section here. We need to gain some wood and components to allow ourselves the opportunity to not only hopefully get rid of some of the cold happening in our current house, but also maybe allow us to build some things. So this one is pretty straightforward. We're going to go ahead with Bruno and rest up, taking a nap, which is going to lower fatigue by 2. This is going to remove this status from him, and now he has his full 3 action allotment. So he'll be able to go all the way to the 3rd round of actions, which is fantastic. Now we're going to move into our pokeabout actions. We're going to go ahead here and roll the die, see what happens. Hopefully something good. Emilia's going to start us off. A 9. That rolled just over the 1. Fantastic. That's going to allow us to get either 4 wood, 4 components, or a mix thereof. So I'm pretty happy to grab 4 wood for that one. We'll roll here now for Boris, hoping to find just as much stuff. Ooh, not so much this time around. We got ourselves a 3, which is only going to be 1 wood or 1 component. So I'll go after wood this time, so now we're bringing back 5 into storage, and both of these actions have been resolved, so they'll go back to the guard position. So moving into the 2nd round of actions here, Bruno's going to get a 2nd action. We're going to have Boris here being able to take a 2nd action, but his fatigue will stop him from having a 3rd. However, for my 2nd action, if I have Boris rest in the bed, then he will remove his fatigue and be able to take that 3rd action, so I'll probably do that with him. And then Emilia, the hunger is going to be the problem that caps her, and there's nothing we can do about that during the day actions phase. So we're going to go ahead with Boris here, put him in the bed so that he can be able to take his 3rd action and clear up his fatigue so it doesn't go any higher in the future. Alright, so for the next 2 actions, for the last 2 characters, Bruno and Emilia are actually going to go down and poke about. We're going to do some more of that. You might be thinking, that's not a good use of time. Well, to be honest, the major focus right now is getting rid of cold tokens, so any wood I can get helps me in that regard. Plus, I'd like to go to the simple heater in the last or 3rd round of actions in order to get rid of as many cold tokens as possible, seeing as we don't have a workshop to be able to board up the house just yet. So because of that, I'm focusing a lot on the cold, which has been ramping up pretty aggressively. So we're going to go here to the pokeabout right now. We'll see if we can deal with these, hopefully in a positive manner. So we'll start with Bruno here. He's going to roll to begin. An 8, that's pretty good. So that's 3 wood or components. I have to decide kind of how I want to mix that up. So being that our focus here is getting rid of these crazy amount of cold tokens and stopping any type of illness that might hit my characters later on with the fate cards, I'm going to grab 3 more wood and really hope that the next roll here for Emilia brings in even more wood. And if we get maybe 1 more wood, anything more than that, I think I'll just grab with components so I can begin to set myself up to build in the next round. So we'll go ahead and roll this off. I got a 3, which is literally the bare minimum. So I probably will just go ahead and grab 1 last wood. A pretty straightforward round for Boris. He's going to go ahead and rest up, which will get rid of his fatigue, which he has at 1, allowing him to take a 3rd round of actions, which is going to begin right now. So only Bruno and Boris are the ones that can go this turn in terms of the 3rd round of actions. Emilia is capped because she has hunger 2, which I'm hoping to deal with canned food later on. So right now, we definitely want someone to go to the simple heater to be able to activate that. We're going to throw a whole bunch of wood in there. We're going to burn away as much, or we're going to make as much heat or generate as much heat as possible. We're ironically putting Bruno back at the simple heater, hoping he doesn't burn the place down. I think he's kind of a pyromaniac, so he probably enjoys starting a fire with this much wood. And then we're going to go ahead and have Boris, and I think what we're going to do is, instead of maybe focusing on building this turn because of the cold tokens really worked us over, I'm going to have Boris actually take the shovel and deal with the rubble remnants, so that at the start of the next day, we can actually jump right to that furniture card right there and grab whatever's there. And just so you guys can actually see that furniture card, it's just beside the rubble remnants, which I have to deal with first. So we're going to go ahead and activate our friend Boris here. Is going to go back to the guard spot, and this shovel will go back to our inventory as it never breaks, and the rubble remnants card is removed. Bruno is going to go crazy here with a whole bunch of wood. He's going to go ahead and spend 4 plus another 4, which is already a total of being able to remove 4 cold tokens, which is pretty aggressive. This is a lot of wood. I really wish I could use this to build stuff, but I do need to clear this stuff up. And I technically will just throw in the other 2. So at the end of the day, I believe 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. So yes, that's going to be 5 sets, or I should say 5 cold tokens are going to be burned away thanks to the simple heater. Now, another thing to focus on is later on, we could eventually go to the new ideas space, and I could go through that deck and find something that's a little bit better in terms of managing cold. And that comes by using this, a improved simple heater to efficient heater. And if I was to go ahead and build this, I'd build it beside the simple heater. And it would allow me to basically, when I do build this, to use a single wood or book instead of 2 in order to be more efficient with use. Because as of right now, I'm burning a lot of resources for not as much gain. But it did kind of mount up on us, and we were really cold. And I don't want illness to creep in when we have almost 0 way of getting... Well, we don't have any meds currently, but we can't guarantee we're going to get any anytime soon either. So with Bruno going crazy and starting the fire he did, 5 of these cold tokens are going to go. So there's 4 right there and 5, leaving just a single one. Pretty good. Okay, we're moving into the dusk stage now, and we're going to go ahead and consume some water for sure. So 1 water from storage for Bruno, 1 for Boris, and 1 for Emilia, bringing us down to a total of 0 water left over. Now this is where things get a little bit tough because we only have canned food available to us and raw food. So we have to decide who's going to eat and who's not going to eat. Well, first off, canned food can remove up to 2 hunger, so it makes perfect sense as we plan to put it on Emilia so she can get rid of her hunger fully. So this hunger 2 is going to disappear, which I'm sure she's quite happy about, as well as the canned food she just consumed. And her misery is going to go back up here. This is another focus point we want to do with her, is keep her out of being miserable. In terms of the raw food, who should take this? Well, overall, I do like, this is a tough one to be honest. The extra action for Bruno here, as you can see, it says you may sacrifice one of Bruno's actions during the day actions phase to roll a black die, and a 6 to 10, anywhere in between there, adds a vegetable to storage. So I might just keep him with the 3 full on the actions. Of course, that's going to change as we go through more phases anyway. But I might go ahead and just have Bruno actually eat the raw food to ensure that he isn't extremely hungry later on, loses an action, because he could use an action to his advantage, whereas Boris doesn't have one. So I'll have Bruno consume the raw food, so that's going to go away. The hunger gets reduced by 1 because of it, so we're sitting pretty good with him. Now, it is unfortunate that we weren't able to go ahead and board up anything because we weren't able to get enough components, really, especially because we were focusing so much on the cold, to be able to build a board up. And in order to build a board up, we need a workshop. So there would have been a number of things we needed, not only a lot of resources, but we would have had to leave a ton of cold, which would have then translated to illnesses later on, which I don't want to have to deal with when I have 0 meds. So I decided kind of made the executive call to basically not take advantage of this relatively peaceful. So we will end up having a night raid phase later on, which is unfortunate, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So we're moving now into the evening where we decide what we want to do in terms of sleeping in beds, on the floor, guard duty, or scavenging. So I think we're going to go back to our old ways here, and we're going to have Bruno actually hold down the fort at the front door. So he's going to stay there. Emilia and Boris are going to head out. Now, no one is fatigued currently, but because we choose these types of actions, everyone is going to gain a fatigue 1 right now. Now, in terms of the party heading out the door during the night here, I have a couple options. I could go to the military outpost or the construction site, but you know what? I kind of want to go back to that supermarket while it's still there because it guarantees a good chance of getting a lot of the things that my characters depend on, like coffee, cigarettes, and food. These are all really huge things, and hopefully if we have a really good round, which we didn't really have one last time, we can come back with a much bigger haul, fingers crossed. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to have our characters head to the supermarket. And one thing to note is that I won't be bringing anything with me. I could bring a shovel, but there's nothing there that can use a shovel, so I'm going to skip past that. So Bruno is guarding the front door. We've got Boris and Emilia out at the supermarket again, hoping to find more stuff to bring back. We got the deck set up with 10 cards because it currently still sits in the exact same slot it was prior, because when we got a fate card, we weren't able to remove anything from the locations area at the time. Otherwise, things would have shuffled and changed. So we do have the supermarket available, so let's go to it. And the first thing we're going to find there now is that the door is jammed. So it says, check the current location card for a jammed door. This one does not have one. So it says, if there is no jammed door, discard this card and draw a new card from the exploration deck. So again, this will basically just be flat out discarded because there's no jammed door. But I can pull a card from the regular exploration deck and not my unknown exploration deck. And we got Search the Pantry, so that worked out pretty good. You may ignore this card or Search the Pantry. I certainly want to. I am definitely going to bump up my noise from 1 to 2. We're going to roll the 10-sided die. We're going to cross our fingers that that doesn't screw us over. I love gambling on these just 1 bump ups. Oh, a 7, we're fine. So now we're going to go here to the findings deck and the pantry chart and see what we got. And when we talk about pantry, that's always a good thing. There should be some food there. Oh, here we go. We got some moonshine, a vegetable, sugar, and a roll of a D10 to determine what we get on the special findings chart. An 8. An 8 is coffee. Perfect. Not bad to start things off, seeing as we're only 1 card into the deck. That's pretty good. Let's continue onwards. Next card off the top of the deck, we have a closed door, and yes, there is a closed door here, but this is again one of those cards. If there is one, you can resolve the card or place it in the exploration slot, as we know, and resolve it later instead of drawing a new exploration card. So we'll go ahead and just put this here and hopefully resolve it later if we happen to find a lockpick, which is probably not going to happen. All right, moving right along to the next one. We've got a hiding place. This could be good. You may ignore this card or return 2 exploration cards to place it on the exploration slot and use it any time. So it can stop us from drawing a residence card. This is huge. So I could bump up my noise. I think I'm going to do this. I think that makes sense. So I'm going to return 2 exploration cards to place it in this area. So now I can use this. Also gives me the ability to perform a backstab if I need to. So that's nice. We got a hiding space to hide in if we need it. Continuing onwards. We found a door. Okay, so we can peek through the keyhole, return 1 exploration card to look at the next card from the unknown deck. The unknown deck's right here. Or just enter it, raise the noise by 1, or just flat out roll for noise. Let's just roll for noise. Let's just go with that. So we're just going to bust straight through. We're at a 2 for noise. We don't have to raise the noise. We just have to roll for it. So let's see. Oh no, we hit it. Unreal. So we did actually trigger it. We are at a 2, so our red noise will drop down to a 1. And funny thing is that because we triggered it, we would normally go to the resonance deck right now, but I can hide because of the noise I just made.
So I can discard this card to ignore an encounter. Do not draw resonance cards. So now I'm just discarding this as if nothing happened. So basically this one can also be discarded as well. Perfect. Okay, so that kind of worked out in a weird twisted way. Now we're going to go ahead to the next card to see what else we run into. Another hiding place. Okay, these are not the cards I want to find right now, but they are helping me a little. Oh, it could be good. How many more cards in the exploration deck do we have? Only 3? That's not good. We might have to start exploring some places further out to get a little more cards in that deck. This is tough too, because if I take it... No, I'm not going to take it. We're too close to the end here. I'll just risk it if I need to. Famous last words. Here we go. Next card in the deck. I'm choosing to ignore that one, by the way. Roll for noise. Unreal. Okay, so we're rolling. At least we've reset it to a 1, so it can't, you know, chances are we should be fine. 5. We're good. Okay. Man, this is a rough go on this one. And next card up, we've got rubble. Oh my gosh, and I didn't bring a shovel either. Jeez, this is tough. Okay, so no rubble, discard this card and draw a new card from the exploration deck. Oh, right, sorry, there's no rubble here. So because of that, we get to draw a card from this deck, so that's good, I guess. Let me just make sure I don't screw that up. Discard this card and draw a new card. Yes, so this card gets discarded because there's no such thing as a rubble pile at this supermarket. I get a new card to resolve. Pokeabout, that's better. So we can return 1 exploration card or roll for noise. I'm definitely going to roll for noise because I'm only at 1. 10. That would have been, that's a pretty good roll. And we get to choose a finding because we passed that. No problem. Either way, pass it or not. We get to choose that. A 1 finding from the special findings chart for this location. Well, there are vegetables there, cigarettes, coffee, weapon parts, mechanical parts, sugar. Now I know that Bruno has the ability to get a vegetable. So that's good. I currently already have a vegetable on me. So if I want to control my hunger 100% going into the next round, I could grab another vegetable. Could be good. Also, I have a coffee coming back with me, but a cigarette would also be good because Bruno really likes cigarettes. I think I'm going to go ahead and take a cigarette. I've been doing a pretty good job of keeping the misery off my characters, and I want to keep it that way. Sorry, I put that in the storage. That should be up in the findings pile. So we got a cigarette up in there as well. Now this card has been resolved, and we're down to our last card. We'll go ahead and resolve this. Nice! Oh, maybe not. Let me see here. So the search the heap. Return 2 exploration cards, which I can't do. Technically, this is over here. And raise the noise by 1, or raise the noise by 1 and roll. Definitely raising the noise by 1, so it's up to 2. Let's roll and hope we don't hit a resident. That would be really bad. We got a 5. Perfect. So we're safe, and now we can draw and resolve 1 card from findings at the very last second and resolve from the heap chart. Let's see what we get. There we go. We got ourselves a filter, an electrical part, a shell, and we get to roll a 10-sided die for a special findings from the grocery store. It's an 8, and that's another coffee. Not bad. Man, we sure love the coffee there. So here's what Boris and Emilia were able to gather, at least initially in the findings pile. Weight-wise, we have an electrical part for 1, filter for 1, sugar is 1, and moonshine is 1. Now, we don't have to take any of these back. These other ones down below are free in terms of weight, so these ones are all coming back for sure. So the question really becomes, do I really want to grab some other stuff? Well, first off, we know we need water. I have a current weight capacity of 9 between these 2 characters. So let's go ahead and definitely grab at least 3 water. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and grab 5 water because that's going to satisfy our objective. We need 2 more water to deliver to the local thugs in order to get past that objective. So let's take 5 water. So now we're at a capacity of 9 for our weight. So the only thing that would allow me to take anything else back with me, which would be nice to do, it'd be nice to grab some components or something, is if I don't want one of these. For now, I don't really need the sugar, so I think I'm going to let that one go in order to grab a component, because again, if I'm at the very, very edge of needing something to build, I want to bring back components over that. So let's go ahead and put a component there instead. Do I really want moonshine? Probably. It's got some good value. Potentially it also has other uses as well. Electrical parts, very good for building. Filters, great for getting more rainwater, which would have been handy earlier, but not so much now. You can use filters for other things too. That's probably pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So this is kind of the loadout we'll bring back to our house. Now, one thing I did forget to do is roll the rubble die before I went and chose all my findings. So we're going to go ahead and hopefully whatever roll I get does not impact what I just chose for my findings. So we're going to roll this because I wanted to do this anyway to see what would happen, because this rubble die is a very interesting mechanic. So we're going to go ahead and roll this off and see what happens. All right, so we got, what the heck is that? I don't even know how to describe what I just landed, but it looks like this from the top, which I don't even think is a legitimate roll. It's literally around the top of 3 different options. So I'm going to go ahead and re-roll that. I don't think that was a planned roll. Probably a fluke. Oh my gosh, I got C again. Are you kidding me? So that's perfect. We already know what C is because we've gotten it before. This must be a high percentage chance then. Between 4 and 22% chance, the C must be up there. Again, makes sense because on the opposite side of the C, you got one of the biggest faces, which is E. There's a few big ones, but E is by far the largest. So we get to drop our fatigue, which is great. That means that somebody else is going to be a little less tired going into the next round. So this time around, I'm going to go ahead and give that fatigue bonus to Bruno for doing such a good job at the door recently. We're going to let him regain. He's kind of snoozing off at night. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us. But he's going to be the one that gains from the rubble die this time around. Speaking of Bruno, we need to find out how well he did. And again, relatively peaceful is not going to be relatively peaceful for us because we didn't board up anything. So we can't skip the night phase. So this is going to be removed as it states at the bottom of the card. We're going to pull a night raid right now to see what happens. Starving people came back again. These guys will just not let us go. So this time we've got a little bit of trouble here. Now they don't do a lot of wounds to us. They still will do something along those lines, although we have a chance to potentially mitigate this. From the starving people right here, we have a damage. It says any 4 tokens, resources, starting with the green tokens. So we know this from last time. And wounds 1. Now this reminds me of something that I missed the last time we did a night raid. Remember, we had the exact same people here, and at the end of it, because I used a narrative card to reduce how much of this they would hurt me, I still gave up some sugar, and that's because we weren't able to cover the entirety of 4 and 1, which is 5. We only had enough to cover 4. Well, guess what? I was supposed to roll the unarmed die, and I knew this, but didn't do it. And I'm going to go ahead retroactively and roll it because it's not going to hurt us. We weren't planning on using the sugar anyway, and if I do get it back, I can just put it back into storage. So we're going to roll this for the last night raid that happened to correct my goof. Of course, I only get it if I happen to land one of 2 symbols on this die. One is this one right here, which is basically a success to reduce, and there's a 2 over here as well, if I can find it. This one right here. So during the night raid, those are the only 2 sides of the die that matter, and of course each one of them is going to reduce the amount of wounds and or damage. So it could be really good. The other thing to make note of is the fact that every character has a prowess on them. So Bruno here having a prowess of 1 means I can make 1 reroll if I'm not happy with the first results of the die. But of course, if I ever choose to reroll, I can't go revert back to the original roll. So again, I'm doing this retroactively for the first night raid. So remember that. This is to see if we can save the sugar. That's pretty much it. Okay, no, but I do get the prowess reroll. Let's see. No, because this fate symbol right here, the tiny little squiggle, that is not going to help us on a night raid. So we actually played it correctly, as if I even knew it was going to happen and be blanks anyway. Now we're going to roll for the starving people that have just shown up for this night raid, because we're right back into it. Oh, I'm a little bit worried about this. This could be bad. Okay, so blank. I'm definitely re-rolling again. Oh my gosh, so lots of blanks, nothing to block there, which means we're going to be suffering 4 tokens, starting with green tokens, and thankfully, we don't have any food right now in storage. But we don't get away with things that easily, so we still have to get rid of 4 tokens in general. I have to decide what I want to get rid of, and this is really brutal, because it really, like, obviously I want to keep the shovel, because that would be a pain to have to rebuild. It's probably going to be, oh, this is really tough. Really tough. It really depends on what I want to build. So the herb is definitely being discarded. 2 of the weapon parts probably, and it really just comes down to which of these, which other one of these am I going to turf? To be honest, I think the one that needs to go is the electrical part, because the mechanical part can be used in a lot of different builds. Electrical is very specific to things like radio, and there's a couple other things you can use it for, but the mechanical one's way more important that way. And of course, I want to keep a weapon part so I can just at least bare minimum make a knife at some point. And these starving people also wounded Bruno. So now we've gone ahead and resolved starving people. Now you might note something different on this one than the one we originally ran into the first night raid of this video, which was also starving people, but at the very bottom of the card it didn't state this. It said, afterwards remove this card from the game. So there are 2 starving people cards inside this night raids deck, and now that we've actually run into one of the 2 that has this removal portion, this one is going to go away. So there is still going to be a chance we could run into some more starving people again in the future, but the odds have just decreased. We run into another crime wave for this day, and we're going to be adding in the only option we have, which is night raid. So we'll be grabbing 2 night raid cards out of the 5 sitting here on the side, and we're going to grab the night raids deck and we're going to merge 2 of them in. This is going to make the night raid deck even more fun. Yikes. And now we head to Dawn, where our scavenging party returns from the supermarket back to the house, bringing with them all their findings. We really didn't have that much in storage, but we have a little bit more now. Now, our objective card is a card I've been working towards throughout this entire playthrough. We need to deliver some water to local thugs, and at any moment we can discard any amount of water without resolving its effects from storage. And for each discard of water, we advance the marker by 1. So I'm going to discard 2 of the waters here, which is perfect, just enough to give us enough to satisfy the thugs. So when we hit this condition at the end now, we are going to get a reward rather than a penalty. So we don't gain the reward right now. We're going to get it near the end of this chapter when we move into chapter number 2. But it's nice to know we're going to get a payoff rather than a raid. So you can see here the payoff is going to be a combination of 10 wood and or components to storage. That's huge and will set us up quite nicely for building a whole bunch of different items, because that's something we've been struggling with. And then down below, if we hadn't have done it, we would have been raided and discarded 6 tokens and resources, starting with the most expensive. That would have been really bad. Now, the unfortunate situation right now is we actually do, at this part of the Dawn phase, get to assign meds and bandages if we so choose, and I really could use some bandages here in order to help with Bruno's wound. Downside is I don't have any, so we're going to have to work towards trying to find some for him because his wounds are likely to get worse on us. Now we're going to go ahead and resolve a fate card. It says raise the illness of all ill characters who did not take any meds or herbal meds by 1. Well, no one's ill, thank goodness, so that's okay. We can heal the wounds of all characters who had bandages by 1. That's unfortunate, because if I had a bandage on him and had one available, he wouldn't have any wounds on him, and he is Bruno. So we're moving right past that. Nothing gained there. Oh no, this says if cold tokens minus board ups equal 1 or more, raise the illness of one chosen character by 1. No, I thought we would have just got under the cold criteria to avoid getting illness, but we just hit it with having 1 left over. We tried. Oh, that's too bad. So we're going to have to determine who should get this illness. Now, we already know that Bruno is already hurting for wounds. So I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to give the illness to Bruno. I don't really want to necessarily break this up over somebody else and have the one permanently removing the 3rd action from them, because I can actually gain back 3 actions with these ones a little more easily. We're going to need to do some work to find some bandages and some meds to get Bruno in better shape here. So moving right along to the next thing, it says exchange this nearest small location. Again, we don't have a small location, so nothing will be exchanged. We'll still have the supermarket, the military outpost, and the construction site. I can tell you that doesn't happen very often. Usually these things move pretty fast. Next up, we resolve the weight tokens. We don't have any, so we can skip right past that. And now we resolve Spirit C on all character cards. This one right here says, if Bruno is wounded, raise his misery by 1. Oh, that's going to be a hit and a half. So let's go ahead and grab a misery 1. He is not having a good time so far. So that's going to bump him up there. He's got all the nasty tokens. For Boris, it says, if Boris is wounded, lower his wounds by 1. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. He would have been a great character to leave. See, that's the advantage of these red characters staying behind and guarding, is something like that happening where he can bandage himself up, because he's kind of prone to being better in combat and obviously with the bandaging side of things without even having bandages, which is pretty awesome. But the downside is if I don't bring him out to scavenge, I don't get to take advantage of his 6 inventory, which is crazy huge. Okay, moving right along, we've got Emilia. It says, if there are at least 2 cold tokens on the cold space, raise her misery by 1. Thank goodness we got a benefit from burning all that wood, so her misery will stay at 1. Here are our 2 narrative action cards drawn. Which one do we want to keep? We've got Secret Storage. It says, play at the beginning of the night raid phase. Place any 3 tokens and resources from the storage on this card. They are ignored when the night raid damage is resolved. Wow. So that's pretty cool. That would allow for me to hide some things that certain individuals coming to our door might want to take. So that's huge, especially if it ends up being food. Like we have things like cigarettes, coffee, things that will basically bump up misery levels on our characters if we don't have them handy. I do currently have them and would not like to lose them. Plus I've got other good things to store as well. So that could be a good one. The one below here is Like a Mouse. It says play during the scavenging phase, and instead of rolling for the noise, set the noise marker to 1. So it makes you a lot quieter. That is a tough call. These are 2 really, really good choices. So I'm going to leave this one and throw it back to you guys. In the top right-hand corner, you're going to see an eye. Click on that and scroll down. You will see a voting option there. You'll be able to pick which one you think I should go with, the Secret Storage or Like a Mouse. And just so you guys are aware, you might have noticed way up in the top right-hand corner, 2 decks have disappeared. That's just because I've kept the fitting deck and the ideas deck close by so that I can constantly reference them throughout the playthrough. So they'll never actually be sitting over there. But when you play the game, you're going to want to keep those decks there because remember, you have to go to this new idea space in order to take cards from the ideas deck in the far right, top right corner to move them into the fittings deck to then be able to create them. So I haven't broken the game in any way, shape, or form. You might be wondering where those decks have disappeared off to. It's just because I like having them just offhand here, so at any point in time I can quickly reference what I might want to build in the future. But that is going to wrap up this particular day. We went through, I should say 2 days we went through, and we're going to continue on and hope to survive even longer. I'm really happy that we were able to successfully make our objective way up at the top, so we're all set going into the next chapter when we do hit it. But who knows what this game has in store for us and what wrenches it's going to throw at us. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you notice anything I missed, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to try to correct it. If it's too far along and uncorrectable, we'll just continue moving forward. Hopefully any misses on my part didn't hurt me too badly. Thank you guys again, and as always, keep on rolling solo.